Hello, buddy. All right, if you haven't already, all right. So if you haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we get some more friendly people to engage, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to get, I'll try to answer the question to the best of my ability. With that being said, of course, we did have some conversations going on before the metal popped in, so thank you for that, metal. Hopefully you're still around. Anyways, um, so since we do have some people in here, I guess I'm gonna go ahead and get ready to talking about what's on tap for tonight. So I'm gonna go over an article from MeTV Tunes. Um, there was, I guess, an interesting article that they had out talking about how Gene Vanderpill and Betty and B. Bennett got the respective roles on the Flintstones of Wilma Flintstone and Betty Rubble. So plus, depending upon how long it takes us to get through the article, we'll probably talk a little bit more about Flintstones. I know, of course, the Flintstones have a number of great Christmas specials that will be coming out in the coming weeks here, like Flintstones Christmas Carol, Chris, the episode from the original series, Christmas Flintstone Christmas, Flintstone Family Christmas. So, and then of course we'll get all caught up with all the latest in terms of what's going on. We'll look back to last night's. We'll get caught up on the wrestling wrap up. Look back to last night's Impact. Impact and Ring of Honor shows. They did have a Ring of Honor show, just didn't have anything listed for it beforehand. We'll get all caught up with that. Look ahead to tonight's SmackDown, as there'll be the go home SmackDown before tomorrow night's Saturday night's main event. John Cena's final match will be, and we'll also be looking ahead to that, as well as Collision tomorrow. And then we will, of course, we'll wrap things up with this day in each history. So, with all that being said, why don't we go ahead and get started on we get started right away here on so let me pull up the article here. All right, so how Gene Vanderpill and B. Bennett became Wilma and Betty. Of course, Gene Vanderpill did a number of voices for Hanna-Barbera. Aside from being Wilma, of course, she was also Rosie the Robot in the Jetsons, and of course, I think she was Winnie Witch in Winsome Witch as part of the Secret Squirrel Show. I think she was Granny in Precious Pup from Adamant. So, how a couple of radio stars became your favorite cave women. And B. Bennett, of course, aside from, of course, being Betty around this time, she was also portrayed Kate Bradley on Petticoat Junction as well. So there they are right there, I guess, from a time when they were more in their radio careers. So in a 1995 interview with Asbury Park Press, Gene Vanderpill revealed, quote, I was never very bold about telling directors what I wanted. You just didn't do that in those days. But there were two times that I did. Quote, it um, turns out both of those times were when she was okay. So unquote rather. It turns out both of those times were when she was auditioning for the Flintstones. Originally, June Foray and Dawes Butler starred in the demo pilot, originally called The Flagstones. Dawes Butler, I guess, doing the voice of Fred, and June Foray doing the voice of Wilma, I would take it. But were unexpectedly dropped. Hanna-Barbera started auditioning more voice actors from the radio world, and that's how Gene Vanderpill and B. Benaderet got into the mix. Now, of course, B. Benaderet did have some earlier voice work she did back in the early 40s with Warner Brothers, before June. It's kind of funny how she would apparently be replacing June Foray here as Wilma, to a sense, because if anything, it was June Foray who actually replaced her as Granny. I think B. Benaderet was originally the original Granny before June Foray took over in the Looney Tunes Merry Melodies cartoons. A little interesting tidbit there. Let's see. Jean Vanderpill was an accomplished radio and television actress, performing in shows like Leave It to Beaver. Her first cartoon roles were additional voices in other Hanna-Barbera cartoon shows like Huckleberry Hound, The Quick Draw McGraw Show, Mr. Magoo, and Loopy de Loop. B. Benaderet was also successfully transitioning from the world of radio into television, starring in The George Burns Show, and along with June Foray, was one of the main female voice actors for the original Looney Tunes shorts. Vanderpill and Benaderet were old friends, having met performing on the radio show The Halls of Ivy. Like many radio stars, they had transitioned into the world of cartoons and now found themselves auditioning for the films. Well, Mel Blanc apparently came from radio and went into voice acting. One example there. Let's see. Auditioning for the Flintstones together. Vanderpill recalled, quote, when B. Benaderet, an old friend, and I were reading for Joe Barbera, in parentheses for the Flintstones, it was the funniest thing. We reread back and forth, this way and that way, unquote. Both actresses read for Wilma and Betty until Joe Barbera asked the two actresses which roles they each preferred. Vanderpill jumped at the opportunity, quote, so I said, oh, I want to be Wilma, unquote. I felt a real closeness to that character. B said, quote, that's fine with me. So that was actually the way it was cast. So that's an interesting little tidbit there. They were both auditioning for both roles, and then Joe Barbera kind of gave them, well, which of the roles do you prefer? So that was a very interesting thing there. But what was the second time Vanderpill told Barbera what she wanted? When Pebbles was born, quote, when we heard there was going to be a baby on the show, we were all excited. The minute I heard that, I thought, in small quotes here, oh, I want to do that baby. Okay. I think we know what she meant, but it could be taken other ways, unfortunately. Vanderpill recalled, quote, sure enough, the first time it was in the script, Barbera said, in small quote, now who's going to do the baby here? On small quote. The minute those words were out of his mouth, I said, I want to do the baby. She's Wilma's baby, and she should sound like Wilma, in parentheses. And that's how the two old radio buddies became best friends, and in parentheses, and a baby on the Flintstones. Watch the Flintstones on MeTV Tunes every day at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 Central, 2:30 Pacific, Saturdays and Sundays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Central, 4:30 Pacific. All right, so that one went kind of quick though, and that's one of the things about these. So let me at least see if maybe there was any other stories that popped up. No, it doesn't look like it. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to clear this out for just a moment here while I take a look to look for some other stuff here. Let's see. Oh, actually, I don't even know why I did that. There's another way I could have done it if I was actually looking for that. I was just trying to see if I could find, but I guess trying to see if I could find when they might be showing the Flintstones Christmas specials next, but apparently they don't have those up at the moment. So let me see now. Hmm. $1984. All right. Okay, so here, so let me at least talk a little bit about some of the, of course, um, Flintstones Christmas specials here. Little review on those, as it were. All right. Let's take a look at these. So, the first Christmas special that came, now grant they also had an episode in 1964 called A Christmas Flintstones, which actually was a similarly played out series in one of these. Actually, it probably played out here, in fact. So, A Flintstone Christmas is a 1977 animated Christmas television special featuring characters from the Flintstones franchise that was produced by Hanna-Barbera and is the second Christmas themed animated work in the franchise after the 1964 episode Christmas Flintstone. Both featured the character Fred Flintstone taking on the role of Santa Claus. The special first aired on NBC December 7, 1977. Now, mind you, A Christmas Flintstone 1974 that had, of course, that had Fred being called upon by a pair of Santa's elves to fill in for a Santa who had gotten a cold, and of course Alan Reed doing the role at the time. So now we have a similar situation where he's taken on. Well, and then the special, of course, has been released on VHS and DVD. It is followed by two more Flintstone Christmas specials: A Flintstone Family Christmas, 1993, and A Flintstone Christmas Carol. And I'm not going to read the entire plot here. I'm just going to summarize it. So, a Flintstone Christmas had initially, Fred and Barney portraying Santa Claus for a party at an orphanage, albeit Fred being somewhat reluctant because he didn't want all he was afraid people were gonna just utilize it to do a lot of fat jokes for him. But then after kind of Mr. Slate asked him to do so, he he decided rather than being afraid of getting fired, he would but then one time as he was preparing to leave his house, heard somebody on the roof. It happened to be Santa Claus, who sprained his ankle. And Santa was talking to Fred, well, why didn't you fix your roof? And therefore, since Santa was laid up, Fred had to fill in for him on this very classic Christmas special. So here are some of the songs that were sung during the during the Christmas special. Which one is the real Santa Claus, which was originally featured in A Christmas Story, 1972. That was another Christmas special that was done by Hanna-Barbera. It's my favorite time of year, also featured in Yogi's First Christmas. You all know how I love Yogi's First Christmas. Sounds of Christmas Day, originally featured in both A Christmas Story and of the 1972 Kings Island Hanna-Barbera attraction Enchanted Voyage. Brand New Kind of Christmas Song, released on Hanna-Barbera's Christmas Sing-Along album in 1991, and Hope, first featured in a Christmas. So they reused a lot of the songs from other movies too. Some of these were, and of course, the voice cast for this, Henry Corden, who had taken over for the late Alan Reed that year in 1977 from Fred Flintstone. After Alan Reed had passed away. And you had Mel Blanc as Barney, Rubble, and Dino. A lot of these people are basically reprising their roles. Jean Vanderpill reprising her role as Wilma and Pebbles. Gay Hartwig having taken over the role of Betty Rubble from the late B. Bennett, who passed away back in 1967. Lucille Bliss as Bam Bam Rubble. Lucille Bliss would, of course, go on to voice Smurfette in the Smurfs. Legendary voice actor John Stevenson as Mr. Slate, who, of course, did not only Mr. Slate for the Flintstones, but also as Doggy Daddy and Augie Doggy and Doggy Daddy, doing a number of voices in the Transformers as well. Hal Smith as Santa Claus in the elevator operator. Hal Smith would be synonymous in the late 70s, early 80s. He would be brought in to do Santa Claus on a number of different, including, of course, Yogi's First Christmas, and he would later on go on to focus on the family's radio serial Adventures in Odyssey as, of course, the lead character, John Avery Whitaker. Virginia Gregg, who Mrs. Claus, who previously portrayed Tara on the Herculoids, and Don Messick, another legend in the voice as Ed the Foreman, and Otis, another legend in the, of course, most notably known for doing Scooby-Doo. Production, Charles A. Nichols, same guy who I believe gave us Blue Beetle in the comics, believe it or not, directed the special based on a teleplay by Dwayne Poole and Dick Robbins. The death of the original voice actor portraying Fred, Alan Reed, caused the character to be recast with Henry Corden, who for over a decade had voiced Fred for records and as a singing voice. And aside from that, of course, Henry Corden did a few other voices as well, including Paul Rudd. Broadcast. The special originally aired on NBC on December 7th, 1977. ABC Family aired the special in its 25 Days of Christmas broadcast in December 2011. Since the late 2010s, the special has aired as part of Boomerang's All I Watch for Christmas block every December. MeTV Tunes aired it as part of its Tis Season for Tunes, November 2nd, 2024. Once again in November 15, 2025. And I believe they'll be rerunning it again as well as we get closer to Christmas Day. So, so there we go with that one. So let's also take a look. So, so let's take a look at the next one, a Flintstones Family Christmas. Actually, I do need to step away from the computer for a moment, so I'll be right back. I'll put some music on and everything you guys want. I'll be right back. right, I'm back. So, anyways, if you guys haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. With that being said, let's go ahead and continue our little look at some of the Flintstones Christmas specials. The next one that came out was a Flintstones Family Christmas. Of course, even saying here, not to be confused with a Flintstones Christmas. So, a Flintstone Family Christmas. Known in a working title as The Flintstones Christmas Misdemeanors, is a 1993 animated Christmas special, television special featuring characters from the Flintstones franchise. It was produced by Hanna-Barbera and aired on ABC on December 18, 1993. The special was nominated for a Primetime Emmy Award in 1994 for Outstanding Animated Program for programming less than 1 hour. This is the only appearance of the character called Stony, adopted into the family in this story. In the final appearance of Pebbles and Bam Bam in their adult forms, along with their children, Chip and Roxy, approximately 25 years since the first series of the Flintstones. Let's see. Hanna-Barbera continued doing the series, but with the original timeline. Yeah, and I know in 1996 they did have the Cave Kids, which was a version. So this is the Christmas special that saw the introduction of Stony, basically a delinquent kid who basically was causing Fred all sorts of troubles. You know, Fred being excited, wanting to see his kids and grandkids, and Wilma had to kind of rein him in. Saying, "Well, yeah, let's take him in for the holidays." So, at least, well, I guess I should read at least some of the plot here. The Flintstones get into the Christmas spirit by hanging up decorations while awaiting the arrival of their daughter Pebbles, her husband Bam Bam, and their two twin children Roxy and Chip. While waiting for their arrival flight from Hollywood Rock, Fred and Barney leave to get a turkeysaurus for dinner. However, on their way back, they are mugged by a fake Santa who takes Fred's watch and wallet and orders Barney to give him the bird. Oh boy. Barney's tossing the turkeysaurus causes the Santa, two children, to break in half, seizing the opportunity to run away from the mothers. So, anyways, what it does, again, this is a story where where Fred and Wilma eventually adopt Stony into their family. So let's find the cursor here. If there's any other comments coming up thus far? Nope, I guess not. All right, so the voice cast for this series, of course, Henry Corden continuing to do the voice of Fred at this point. Gene Vanderpill, Frank Welker taking over the roles of Barney Rubble and Dino after, of course, the passing of Mel Blanc back in 1989. B.J. Ward had taken over the role of Betty Rubble here from Gay Hartwig. John Stevenson was continuing to do Mr. C. Christine Cavanaugh was the voice of Stony. Christine Cavanaugh, of course, known as Blossom from Powerpuff Girls. I believe she did some stuff on Rugrats as well. Dee Dee Khan, Stella, of course, Dee Dee Khan, Stacy from Shining Time Station. Megan Mullally as Pebbles, Flintstones Rubble, and Jerry Hauser as Bam Bam Rubble. And I believe Jerry Hauser, he did Bam Bam previously in some some of the Flintstone spin-offs, like Pebbles and when Pebbles and Bam Bam were like, I think Jerry Hauser actually starred opposite Sally Struthers in the Pebbles and Bam Bam show back in 1971. So that's basically all for that. Now let me just go back a bit here, and then of course those two series were followed. Those two specials were followed up by, of course, the Flintstones adaptation of A Christmas Carol. Hey, Vichogo, thanks for dropping in. Hopefully, you're having a good week. Ready for the weekend and all that. Christmas being just under 2 weeks away here. Let me see. If you haven't already, of course, we can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. With that, let's look here. So, A Flintstones Christmas Carol is a 1994 American animated made-for-television film featuring characters from the Flintstones and based on the 1843 novella A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. One of course, of many adaptations of A Christmas Carol. I mentioned this Sunday, MeTV Tunes will be showing a variation on as part of their the one that was directed by Chuck Jones from 1971. But anyways, it features the voices of Henry Corden, Gene Vanderbilt, and Frank Welker. It first aired November 21st, 1994 in syndication. And this, of course, has this, of course, has Pebbles and Bam Bam once again being kids here. So Henry Corden portraying Fred Flintstone, the Flintstones, and then Ebenezer Scrooge. In this one, what would end, the thing that was causing some problems during this in the movie here was that the bedrock bug was going around, which I guess you could say is a Stone Age flu or something like that. And a number of actors, and Wilma had to keep coming in to portray a bunch of different actors. You have Mr. Slate continuously, crying about wanting to be, Scrooge. So, but anyways, this is their. But Stevenson got Jacob Marley instead. Aside from the usual suspects, like, of course, Henry Corden, Gene Vanderbilt, Frank Welker, B.J. Ward, all coming back to portray, and Don Messick as well. Well, Don Messick this time coming in to do Bam Bam Rubble. Pebbles being done by Russi Taylor, John Stevenson. You have some other pretty well-known, including Will Ryan, who did the voice of Footloose and G.I. Joe and Rock and Roll as well. So, all right. So that's all we got for all that. So, if you guys have a chance, you guys should really check out those Christmas specials, as they're pretty fun to watch. With that, we're going to go ahead and get ready to move on to the wrestling wrap up here. All right, what am I doing here? Oh, wait a minute. Actually, let me do one more. Let me do one more thing I think might be quick here. I might have done this once before, but I would like to kind of take a look back at the a portion of the career of Hal Smith, who, as I said, was known for many years of portraying Santa Claus. I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about him, about some of his career in the realm of voice acting. Probably look over some of his credits, since we do have a little bit of time still. So, for those of you who grew up in the 70s, 80s, I'm sure you heard Hal Smith's voice quite a bit, particularly around Christmas time, as he actually did a number of different specials, lending his voice to Santa Claus. So here's the basic information here. Harold John Smith, August 24th, 1916 to January 28th, 1994, which would have made him about 77, was an American actor. He is credited in over 300 film and television productions and was best known for his role as Otis Campbell, the town drunk, on CBS's The Andy Griffith Show, and for voicing Al in 4 of the 5 Winnie the Pooh shorts. Characters absent in Winnie the Pooh and Tigger 2. Smith who also replaced voice actor Sterling Holloway as the title character Winnie the Pooh. In the last 2 shorts, Winnie the Pooh discovers a season, Winnie the Pooh and a Day for Eeyore. And in the television series, Winnie the Pooh, Welcome to Pooh Corner. He was also the voice of Goofy from 1967 to 1983. Did a cameo in Apartment of the Drunken Santa Claus. Again, there's Santa Claus, and provided the voice of Goliath in the TV series Davy and Goliath. Yeah, I guess he was a pretty because I know he went on to voice John Avery Whitaker in the radio serial Adventures in Odyssey for Focus on the Family as well. So let's see. Like I said, let me just focus in on his voice acting career. That's the part I want to really focus. So so Smith also worked extensively as a voice actor in animated film television series. His first voice credit was as Pepe, a boxing mobster, in Walter Lance's The Bongo Punch in 1957. Beginning in the late 1950s, with such shows as The Huckleberry Hound Show and Quick Draw McGraw. He also, in 1959, would lend his voice to the syndicated animated series Clutch Cargo as well. He was in that as well. Smith became one of the most prolific voice actors in Hollywood, eventually working with most of the major studios and production companies, such as Hanna-Barbera, Walt Disney, Warner Brothers, the Mirish Corporation. I think the Mirish Corporation was the ones that did that were distributing the Pink Panther cartoons, and Sid and Marty Krofft, with voice roles on such series as The Flintstones, in which he mostly did the voices of Texas millionaires such as Fred's rich Uncle Tex, Pink Panther, The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, Mickey Mouse, Yogi Bear, and Looney Tunes. Mm-hmm. As I mentioned before, Hal Smith did quite a bit of Santa Claus as well. In 1962, he voiced Taurus, the Scots accented mechanic of the spaceship Starduster, for the series Space Angel. According to the book Space Patrol, Missions of Daring in the Name of Early Television. Quote, it's rumored that Gene Roddenberry was a huge fan of the show and patterned Star Trek's engineer, Mr. Scott, after McCloud's Scottish sidekick, Taurus, unquote. He also did voices for the Hong Kong Phooey series. In 1977, he was the voice of Grandpa Josiah in the cartoon special Halloween is Grinch Night. The same year, he began voicing the Disney character Winnie the Pooh, replacing Sterling Holloway, who had provided the voice of the character for many years, beginning with the Disney read-along adaptation of Winnie the Pooh and Tigger 2. He was also very active with doing voices in 1980s. He was Sludge in The Smurfs, Goofy in A Mickey's Christmas Carol, and Disney's DuckTales. He did the voice of Scrooge McDuck's rival, Flintheart Gongo. Wow, he did Flintheart Gongo. And the absent-minded scientist, Gyro Gear. I guess that would make sense. That did sound like him. I also know, aside from doing Santa Claus in Yogi's First Christmas, he also did Otto the Chef in Yogi's First Christmas as well. I do know that much. Let's see. And Frog and Toad are friends, and Frog and Toad together. He also did the voice of Toad. Smith also voiced the Disney cartoon character Goofy after Pinto Colvig died in 1967 and would voice him up until Mickey's Christmas Carol in 1983. He provided the voice of Owl in the two original Winnie the Pooh featurettes, Winnie the Pooh and the Honey Tree and Winnie the Pooh and the Blustery Day, in parentheses, and the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh in 1977. In the 1960s, he was one of the most sought-after voice actors in Hollywood. From 1959 till 1975, he provided the voices of Goliath, Davy's dad, and many other characters in Davy and Goliath. From 1960 to 1961, he was the voice of Elmer Fudd so they brought him in to do Elmer Fudd after Arthur Q. Bryan died. In 1963, he voiced Dr. Todd Goodhart, Belly Laguna, and Dr. Von Upp in The Funny Company cartoon series. From 1964 to 1966, he was the voice of Yappy in the Hanna-Barbera cartoon shorts Yippee Yappy Yahooey. Oh, wow. Wow. Yappy, I think, was kind of the middle-sized dog of the three. He was also the voice of Cosgood Creeps, Asa Shanks, the farmer, and Mr. Greenway on Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? In 1981, he reprised his role as Al and Winnie the Pooh in the short Winnie the Pooh Discovers the Seasons. He then voiced the two characters in Winnie the Pooh and A Day for Eeyore in 1983, as well as Disney Channel's television series Welcome to Pooh Corner. On the television series The New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh in 1988, Jim Cummings took over as Pooh, while Smith continued playing Al. So as he was getting on in years, maybe they just thought, they figured, well, let's take some of the pressure off of him by, maybe having him do one less voice. That's possible. The two voice actors sometimes rotated the voice of Winnie the Pooh. In 1991, Smith provided the voice of Philippi the horse in the Disney film Beauty and the Beast before his death in 1994. In 1985, he voiced Norman Harper, a sick father of wife Jennifer Walters, voiced by DJ Hamner. Hanner in the radio drama entitled House Guest. It aired on Focus on the Family. Jennifer Walters, of course, also the name of the She-Hulk alter ego, I believe. It aired on Focus on the Family daily broadcast on November 23rd, the day before Thanksgiving. Now, of course, he would also go on later to do John Avery Whitaker in the Focus on the Family series Adventures in Odyssey as well, which I'm sure they'll mention here. Of that year, he went on to voice other roles for other Focus audio presentations, and starting in 1987, Smith was the voice of the main character John Avery Whitaker on Focus on the Family's longest-running radio drama, Adventures in Odyssey, which debuted that year. He was responsible for much of the cast joining the show after he signed on, including Katie Lee, who, of course, went on to do Totally Spies. Will Ryan, who, as I said, was the voice of Rock and Roll and Footloose and G.I. Joe. Walker Edmondson, a well-known voice from Sid and Marty Krofft, as well as Inferno from Transformers. Earl Bowen, who, of course, he did the voice of Simon Stagg, or actually of Simon Stagg's assistant in actually it might have been Simon Justice League series, well as I believe the Red Skull and Spider-Man the animated series in the 90s, Dave Madden and others, on parentheses. And he continued recording episodes until a few weeks before his death, even while his health deteriorated. In an Andy Griffith interview published after he died, Smith said that Adventures in Odyssey was one of the most gratifying things he had done in his life. Additionally, he voiced dozens of other characters during the 253 episodes in which he participated. His role of Wit was later filled by Paul Herlinger in 1996, and then Andre Storka in 2009 after his death. Hal voiced Joe McGee in The Old Man and the Sea Duck episode of Tailspin. Smith was also very active working in television commercials as various characters. He provided on-screen promotion for Three Musketeers, United Van Lines, Hickory Farms, Toyota, Green Giant, General Mills, Mattel, Kellogg's, Pizza Hut, Chicken of the Sea, Ivory Soap, Dr. Ross Dog Food, Pioneer Chicken, Bell Telephone Company, Coca-Cola, Chef Boyardee, and hundreds of advertising campaigns. All right. So that's, I think we got enough to there time-wise. Yeah, so I'm going to move on to the wrestling wrap-up here, as it were. Anyways, as we continue on here. So we're going to look back, of course, first off to last night's Impact, as they finish out the year here with some shows following their Final Resolution pay-per-view. So coming from the El Paso County Coliseum in El Paso, Texas, with Tom Hannafin and Matthew Rainwalt on commentary on Access TV. TNA Impact, of course, in the opening match saw Lexis King defeat Matt Cardona in 5 minutes. Then the Elegance brand of Heather and M by Elegance with their personal concierge defeated the team in a women's tag team match, defeated the team of Mila Grace and Harley Hudson. In a number one contendership six-way match, in a six-way match for the number one contendership of the TNA X Division title to see who will get the next shot. Prime, Cedric Alexander, defeated BDE, Desmond Xavier of the Rascals, Jake Something, Jason Hotch of the Great Hands in Order 4, and Ryan Nemeth to earn a shot against Leon Slater. The System of Eddie Edwards and Brian Myers defeated the team of Sinner and Saint, Judas Icarus, and Travis Williams. And the main event saw a dog collar match. Danny Luna defeat Indy Hartwell. All right. So now, also looking back to last night. Now looking back to the Ring of Honor show. Ring of Honor Honor Club on Ring of Honor Wrestling or ROHWrestling.com with Caprice Coleman and Ian Riccaboni on commentary coming from the Greater Columbus Convention Center in Columbus, Ohio. Opening match saw in a tag team match, the Spanish Announce Project of Angelico and Serpentico defeat the team of Josh Crane and LSG. In a six-man tag match, the Dark Order of Evil Uno, Alex Reynolds, and John Silver defeated the Frat House, continuation of their feud with the combination of Griff Garrison, Cole Carter, and Preston Vance with Jack Jameson in their corner. Zeta Steel, who recently debuted with Ring of Honor, defeated Rachel Ellering in just over 6 minutes. Another singles match, Jay Lethal defeated Nathan Cruz. In a women's tag team match, former TNA knockouts, now part of AEW and Ring of Honor. Current women's pure champion Deonna Purrazzo and Madison Rayne defeated a team of Diamante and Billy Starks. Then you had CMLL's Hechicero defeat Josh Woods in a singles match. In a 10-man tag match, Dalton Castle, the Outrunners, Tommy Billington, and Adam Priest defeated the team of M&M TV and the premier athlete M&M TV of Mansoor, Mason Madden, and Johnny TV, and the premier athlete duo of Arya Davari and Tony Nese, with, of course, Mark Sterling, Story Denali, and Taya Valkyrie in their corner. In a proving ground match to try to earn a shot at the Ring of Honor Women's World Television title, Red Velvet staved off the challenge of Lacey Lane in just over 5 minutes. In another tag team match, former rivals, the Death Riders, Daniel Garcia and Wheeler Yuta, defeated the team of Willie Mack and Aaron Solo. In the main event, saw an 8-man tag match. Commander and the team of Skyflight of Scorpio Sky and the Martin brothers, Dante and Darius Martin, with Alex Umber Bahantes and Christopher Daniels in the corner, defeated Shane Taylor Promotions with Anthony Ogogo and Trish Adora in their corner, with, of course, the team of pure champion Lee Moriarty and World Six-Man Tag Champions, the Infantry of Carly Bravo and Sean Dean and Shane Taylor. So that's all that happened last night. So now looking ahead to tonight's SmackDown, this will be the go-home SmackDown. This will be, of course, the go-home SmackDown for tomorrow night's. Before tomorrow night's. Before tomorrow night's Saturday night's main event. Let me bring that up here. Tonight's SmackDown, coming from the Mohegan Arena at Casey Plaza in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, on the USA Network. Matches that are already signed to happen tonight include Alexa Bliss taking on Lash Legend in a singles match, and a continuation of the build up of the women's tag team division through these singles matches. Ilya Dragunov will be defending the United States title against Tommaso Ciampa of DIY, and in a mixed tag team match, Aleister Black and Zelina, the husband and wife duo of Aleister Black and Zelina, will be taking on the Terror Twins of Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley. So that will be all going on tonight as they prepare for tomorrow night's Saturday night's main event, John Cena. And speaking of tomorrow night, let's also take a look at tomorrow night's stuff. First off, we're going to look at AEW, then we'll look at so on tomorrow's AEW Collision, as soon as I can grab that. So on the second, basically on the second part on day 2 of the Winter is Coming event on Collisions, coming from the Utilia Arena Cardiff in Cardiff, Wales, United Kingdom. Already scheduled in Continental Classic action. In a Gold League match, you'll have a battle of the tag team known as Jet Speed, as Speedball Mike Bailey will be taking on his tag partner, the Jet Kevin Knight. In the main event, we'll see Claudio Castagnoli in the Blue League match. Claudio Castagnoli, who has 6 points in the tournament thus far, of the Death Riders, taking on another person with 6 points. IWGP World Champion Konosuke Takeshita. In other matches, Josh Alexander of the Don Callis family will be taking on Swerve Strickland. In women's tag team match, AEW World Champion Chris Statlander teams with former AEW World Champion current AEW Women's World Champion Chris Statlander and former AEW Women's World Champion Jamie Hayter team up to take on the Sisters of Sin from the Triangle of Madness, Sky Blue and Julia Hart. And Mark Briscoe will be defending the TNT title against the Death Riders' Daniel Garcia. That's what's going down on AEW tomorrow night. Now, looking ahead to, of course, tomorrow night's Saturday night's main event, as there have been 4 matches signed for that. John Cena's retirement match will be happening tomorrow night. I'll be looking at that real quick here. Coming from the Capitol Center in Washington, D.C. on Peacock with Wade Barrett and Michael Cole on commentary. AJ Styles and Dragon Lee are set to defend the WWE World Tag Team titles against NXT's Javon Evans and TNA X Division champion Leon Slater. Bailey will be taking on Sol Ruka. In a non-title match, WWE Undisputed Champion Cody Rhodes will be taking on NXT Champion Obafemi in a battle of champions there. And John Cena will have his final match of his career against Gunther in what many believe will be a passing of the torch type of moment. As to how they're going to do the match, there's been a lot of speculation as whether or not will Cena tap? Will he pass out, or will he be pinned? But I guess you'll have to just wait and see tomorrow night. So with that, that's all we got for the wrestling wrap up. So now with today being, of course, Friday, December the 12th, 2020, 2025. Let's go ahead and take a look back at this day in Nietzsche history. History! So let me just get all this. Let's see. 45, 20, and 1950. All right, so first off, we're going to head back 80 years ago today. And on this date, 80 years ago today, back in 1945, here, the 70th issue of Whiz Comics went on sale on this date back in 1945. It sold for 10 cents. With 32 pages, of course, the features of the story included Captain Marvel, the world's mightiest mountain, Golden Arrow, Hair Today, Gone Tomorrow, Spy Smashers Visit the Dentist, and Ibis the Invincibles, Hands of Horror. So the 70th issue of Whiz Comics from Fawcett Comics went on sale on this date back in 1945. Now, moving on to the next piece of niche history here. As actually, I'd like to wish a happy 75th birthday to voice actress, Darlene Carr. Of course, the younger sister of Shannon Farnan, the original voice of Wonder Woman from the Super Friends cartoons. Darlene Carr, in her own right, did some voice work, as she portrayed the voice of Shanti in the Jungle Book, as well as Margot in the greatest adventure stories from the Bible. A happy 75th birthday to voice actress and American actress, voice actress Darlene Carr. Actually, was she born in the States? Because I know her sister was actually born. Yeah, I guess she was born here in the States. I know Shannon was actually born in Canada, from what I had seen before. All right, so there we go with that one. And finally, moving ahead to the year 2020 here. On this date in the year 2020, 5 years ago today. 5 years ago today. Manik would defeat Rohit Raju to become the new Impact X Division champion. So on this date, 5 years ago today, Manik would defeat Rohit Raju to become the new Impact World Champion. All right, so with that, I thank everybody for being here tonight. Hope everybody enjoyed the show. Glad many of you did stick around for the majority of it. We'll be back here on Sunday. We'll be taking another trip down Comics History Lane, as I'll be joined by the Metal from the Vomitorium. We'll be looking back to comics went on sale from Columbia Comics. We'll be looking at Big Shot number 5. So with that, I thank everybody for being here, and I hope to see everybody back here Sunday. Bye.